So this module is all about time management, and in particular a very simple but very effective visual tool that can help you with time management, built around a 2x2 matrix. But before I come to that, I need to provide a little bit of a context for how time management has evolved. So you can see it a little bit like evolution if you wanted. The first wave or generation of time management was characterized by notes and checklists, which gave some sort of recognition to the demands on our time and energy. And the next generation was characterized by calendars and appointment books. So we started to look ahead to schedule events and activities in the future. And then the third generation kind of reflects where we are now, because it's all about prioritizing. We set goals, which might be long or short term, and we try and make a daily plan of how we're going to achieve that goal. And now, of course, with all of the technology that we have at our fingertips, we're far more efficient about internalizing all of these time management demands. We can build in our to-do lists, our calendar into our daily life in our computers. However, there's a strong argument to say that this efficiency and control of time is actually counterproductive. That time management is a bit of a misnomer. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourselves. So let's think about these 4 quadrants and this 2x2 matrix. It's a very simple thing to draw out. They have labels at the top, urgent and not urgent, and down the side it's all about being important and not important. So something that might be urgent and important might be a baby crying. You're going to have to investigate and find out exactly what's happening there. Not urgent, but still important, might be something like exercise. Urgent, but possibly not important, might be a phone call that just interrupts you. And not urgent and not important are all the nice things in life, like TV. And these quadrants have numbers. So urgent and not urgent, remember, across the top, important and not important down the sides. We're looking at quadrant 1, urgent and important, quadrant 2, not urgent, important, 3, urgent, not important, and 4, not urgent and not important. So let's think about how this actually applies to our daily life. Well, quadrant 1 is all the urgent and important things. And these are the most pressing tasks that we're likely to get this week. The crises that erupt, the most pressing meetings, the deadlines, they all fall into this category. When we do our firefighting, it's all relating to stuff in this category, this quadrant. Now I'm going to skip and go down now to quadrant 3, because these are the urgent but not important. And these tasks are the biggest reason why we're not more successful in the long term. They clog up our time today, but actually when we look back at the things at the end of the week, we realise pretty much they're a waste of time. Phone calls, poorly thought out meetings that soak up our time, other activities which we tell ourselves in the moment we've got to do, but actually if we stopped ourselves to really think about it, we'd realise aren't that important. Now, quadrant 4, all those nice things, the things we do because we're tired and we need a break, checking Facebook or Twitter during the day, watching a bit of TV. And we prioritise these things in the moment and we get pleasure from it, but they're not urgent and they're not important. And you'd be amazed at how much time we waste in a given week on these tasks. And that leaves us with quadrant 2. Not urgent, but important. These are the things that matter in the long term, but may not yield a tangible benefit this week or even this year. They're things we know we need to do, but we'll probably put off. The planning, the opportunities, thinking about how we can improve things or prevent things, all the subtle investment that goes into building relationships. So just a reminder again about what we're talking about here. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. So let's think a bit about the effect of each quadrant. Well, if you are constantly firefighting, if you are constantly having to put out those fires and dealing with crisis management, which is all the stuff that comes into urgent and important, it's stressful. And after a while, that exhaustion can lead to you feeling pretty burnt out. Now, quadrant 3, the urgent but actually not important, is often also about crisis management. And what it means is that you tend to think very much in the short term. You can feel quite out of control because of this, and goals and plans feel pretty worthless. Now, that quadrant 2, the not urgent but important, this can give you vision and perspective. It'll give you more of a balance. It'll give you discipline over what you're doing and more control. And the chances are fewer crises. You're not getting rid of the crises, but there will be fewer. And if you do quadrant 4 the whole time, you'll probably get fired. So there's a nice simple story that acts as a sort of analogy for this, which is a man walking through a forest, and he comes across another man who's cutting down a tree, and this man is pouring with sweat. And the first man says, how long have you been doing this for? And the log cutter says, hours and hours. And the first man says, rather irritatingly, well, have you thought about taking time out to sharpen your saw? And the log cutter says, well, I'll do that once I've finished chopping down this tree. And the point being, of course, that if he did actually take time out to sharpen his saw, he would save time in the long run when it came, and effort when it came to cutting down the tree. So we can apply this back to our quadrants, because when we think about where the saw fits in, we've got an awful lot of things now that mean everything can fall into quadrant 1. The internet, Twitter, email, smartphones means that actually we can address a lot of things that feel like they're important and seem like they're urgent. And so it uses up a lot of our time. The reality, of course, when we look back on it, and if we took a bit of time to reflect, is that a lot of these things that felt like that they were needing a response now because you can respond, aren't so important. We've got distractions aplenty when it comes to not important and not urgent, but it's this sharpening the saw that we need to find time for. So, what should we actually do? Well, if you simply spend 30 minutes at the beginning of each week thinking about these 4 quadrants, what you want to spend your time on in the coming week, you'll be 10 times more productive than you usually are. Because what you'll realise pretty quickly is that you've only been spending time on urgent tasks each week. It's like a constant fire drill. You're simply trying to get one thing off your plate so you can breathe for half a second and get to the next emergency to get off your plate and so on. And if someone stopped you and asked, the way you're spending your time on these urgent tasks, is that actually helping you achieve any long-term goals? You'd probably say, well, no, but I need to get this stuff done to clear up time on my schedule so I can do those things, and you become a hamster in a wheel. So the real key thing is that you need to try and manage those quadrant 1. Try and work out what falls into quadrant 3 and avoid those. Limit yourself quite consciously and deliberately in terms of what falls into quadrant 4, and find time to focus on what goes into quadrant 2. Just 10% of your time a week will make a huge difference, up to 30%, even better. Peter Drucker said that effective people are not problem-minded, they're opportunity-minded. They feed opportunities and starve problems. They think preventatively. They still have genuine quadrant 1 crises and emergencies that require their immediate attention, but the number is comparatively small. I guarantee you won't see flowers from planting these seeds for several months, maybe not even a year, but if you keep with it, if you keep giving yourself time to look at quadrant 2 and make it part of your regular routine, you will get results. Opportunities will pop up, connections will be made, relationships will blossom. You will find ways of preventing problems and improving things, but you have to make it part of your routine.